And, guess what happened after Admiral Byrd? Guess what happened? They came up with NASA. They came out with Roswell. They came out with, you know, the Star Trek and the fake moon landing and the Buck Rogers and all that stuff, and all that nonsense. Star Trek, Star Wars. Why would they do that? And they also developed the microwave right after this. Look up my video on how Top Gun jet fighters work. They also came out with the jet fighters, which are not using fuel. They're using microwave technology. So they're looking for the technology to replicate this because when they debriefed Admiral Byrd, he gave them all this information, which if you're a DARPA guy or a military guy, DARPA also is in Sanskrit, by the way. It means mirror. I'll do a video on that later. All these acronyms are in Sanskrit because they know full well it's the language of creation. But anyway, and the swastika on the sides of these craft are also from the ancient Vedic um, uh, god culture. So that says a lot right here about where we come from. So after about 10 minutes, two of our wondrous appearing hosts came to our quarters and announced that I am to accompany them. I have no choice but to comply. I leave my radio man behind, and we walk a short distance and enter into what seems to be an elevator. Yeah, this type of writing seems very to the point, very military, high officer like style of writing. He's saying they're wondrous appearing hosts, and he was accompanied. He wasn't alone on the flight, but he had to leave the radio man, and I mean, he's saying he has to comply, so he's complying. We descend. I mean, he could say no, and he could flip out, and they would probably kill him or throw him in some kind of jail. I don't think they would be as barbaric as we are, though, putting people in jail. But he might just get knocked out and sent back to the UN flag demonic nations. But it seems they wanted to talk to the guy, and the guy was bright enough to realize that. So we descend downward for some moments, and the machine stops, and the door lifts silently upward. We then proceed down the long hallway that is lit by a rose-colored light that seems to be emanating from the very walls themselves. Again, guys, I mean, this is exuding crystal magic. One of the beings motions for us to stop before a great door. Now, he's not calling them humans now. That's very particular. Over the door is an inscription that I cannot read because it's not in English, obviously. It's not in any sort of Western alphabet. The great door slides noiselessly open, and I am beckoned to enter. That'd be amazing if he were still alive, and we could ask him if that writing was in some sort of script, like a Vedic script or Devanagari script or something like that. That would be pretty awesome. But oh well, we can't have everything in life, right? Can we? One of my hosts speaks. Have no fear, Admiral. You're to have an audience with the master. Strange wording. Why would anybody use that word? He's not using the word president. He's not using the word chieftain or boss, the big guy, the big kahuna. He's saying master. And if you paid attention earlier, he said domain. They said domain. Welcome to our domain. So he's the master of the domain. Wow. Very interesting. Crystal domain. Master of the crystal domain. I step inside and my eyes adjust to the beautiful coloration that seems to be filling the room completely. Again, some sort of recessed lighting, but Byrd's familiar with such things. He's probably the most interesting man in the world at this point. So he knows stuff from every single continent, and this seems so different to him. So it's not just your average recessed lighting. It seems to be something that's emanating from the walls themselves, the crystal walls. Then I begin to see my surroundings. What greeted my eyes is the most beautiful sight of my entire existence. It's a bold freaking statement. It is in fact too beautiful and wondrous to describe. It is exquisite and delicate. I do not think there exists a human term that can describe it in any detail with justice. Whew. Let that sink in. Like, that's huge. My thoughts are interrupted in a cordial manner by a warm, rich voice of melodious quality. I bid you welcome to our domain, Admiral. Again, the word domain, master of the domain. And then they have this, in the book here, they have this stupid picture of Agartha in Hollow Earth. Just completely ludicrous and asinine. You see how they're screwing with your mind? But they're so arrogant to keep the truth. That's why I'm telling you. I see a man with delicate features and with the etching of years upon his face. He is seated at a long table. He motions me to sit down in one of the chairs. So the guy's not even speaking. He said hello and he motions. Just like somebody who has a lot of power would do. After I am seated, he places his fingertips together and smiles. He speaks softly again and conveys the following. Fingertips together is a mudra. It's a magical mudra. Okay? The Illuminati didn't invent stupid hand signs. Okay? They just copied them. What they are is magical mudras. I'll do a video on that later. Let's keep going. We have let you enter here because you are of noble character and well known on the surface world, Admiral. Surface world? I have gasped under my breath. Well, this is the type of thing that could be redacted, or it could have a different meaning. Because from the past picture, they're trying to push to you that inner Earth stupidity, right? And I'm not saying I'm not saying there's no levels beneath us or above us. There can quite possibly be several layers to this reality, or different realities below us or beneath us or above us, or completely different dimensions. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is this here is not about inner Earth. Okay? So that word could have been switched out, or it could have been switched out for outside world. And we'll know on the outside world. So, or the inside world, or it could be that word. Right? So they might be referring to us as surface world, because they're in a different portion of the plane. Yes, the master replies with a smile. You are in the domain of the Ariani, the inner world of the earth. We shall not long delay your mission, and you will be safely escorted back to the surface and for a distance beyond. But now, Admiral, I shall tell you why you have been summoned here. That's a lot to take in. So, Ariani is also Sanskrit, and I'll tell you here what it means in a second. But when he's saying inner earth, that doesn't necessarily preclude or exclusively mean that it's inside a ball. It could be an outer ring, it could be an inner ring, and that's exactly what I think it is. Okay, they're the inner world of the earth. They consider themselves part of an inner domain. Okay, and we are a surface domain to them from their perspective. And he's saying that he was summoned. He's not saying that, hey, you found us, but he's saying that he was summoned somehow. So maybe even the whole trip, the whole him being there was manipulated by this civilization. They might have assets here. We don't know. I don't know. Maybe the CIA or MI6 or the Mossad knows. I don't know. They might have assets here. We don't know. And but it doesn't seem that their intentions are evil. But you can never know. I mean, you always kind of have to play for the home team, but you have to know who the home team is, right? If you're talking to human beings and the enlightenment and the fulfillment, like uplifting of humans, I'm all for it. If you're talking about these demonic interests, I'm not interested in it at all. So let's continue. Our interest rightly begins just after your race exploded the first atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. It was that alarming time we sent our flying machines, the Flugelrads, which is German, to your surface world to investigate what your race had done. That is, of course, past history now, my dear Admiral, but I must continue on. This seems heavily redacted to me, because we know there's no such thing as atomic bombs, or do we? I mean, if there's thermobaric bombs, is there something more powerful? Do we even have access to it? Those are questions for further research. Okay, but it could be anything. It could be they got interest, when we started doing certain things, and those Fulgurites are the Tic Tacs that we used to see before the 50s. You see, we have never interfered before in your racist wars and barbarity, but now we must, for you have learned to tamper with a certain power that is not for man, namely that of atomic energy. Remember, there's no atomic energy, but it might be crystal magic. So, if he told Byrd that, and I were the NSA or the CIA guy redacting this, I would scratch that out immediately and substitute it for atomic energy. But I will leave out the rest, just to screw with you. Our emissaries have already delivered messages to the powers of your world, and yet they do not heed. Now you have been chosen to be a witness here that our world does exist. You see, our culture and science it's many thousands of years beyond your race, Admiral. So he's saying they're a different race, beyond your race. And I've heard from other people that the Lemurians are not descendants of Adam. Through the histories and ancient texts, I don't have any proof with me, but I would call that testimonial evidence from somebody that I know, that I used to know. He told me over 10 years ago that there exist other humans in this realm that are not sons of Adam. So if they're not sons of Adam, then what are they? And if they're human, so they might have been created at a time before Genesis 1. But remember that there's that whole theory where, in Genesis 1, it says the Spirit of the Lord was hovering over the waters and the earth was void and destroyed, and depending on the translation. So there might have been a world before that, the world like the pre-Atlantean or the Atlantean world. And, God might have made, man in his image before that. And these people stayed true to him. They didn't do all the nasty stuff that we're doing. So he's referring to us as a different race. That's very interesting. Because all of us right here are the same race. Let's not get into stupid arguments. I interrupted. But what does this have to do with me, sir? The master's eyes seemed to penetrate deeply into my mind, and after studying me for a few moments, he replied, "Your race has now reached the point of no return. For there are those among you who would destroy your very world rather than relinquish their power as they know it." Is that true or not? Tell me. Tell me. Given current events, is that a false statement or a true statement? Answer the question. This is kind of a rhetorical, it's like a monologue between me, myself, and I, but you see my point. This is exactly what's happening right freaking now. Okay? So, to me, this sounds so truthful. And this was written years ago. I nodded because when Byrd interrupts the master, he says, "Well, what does this have to do with me, sir?" And he looks at him like that. He's kind of trying to ascertain why he asked that question. Was somebody so smart would ask that question, or like, "Are you stupid? Or are you messing with me? Or what's your angle? Or are you to spy on us? Or what are you doing? Why are you asking that stupid question?" But then he kind of said, "Well, I'm going to tell him my piece regardless." And he tells him, right? You've reached the point of no return. You found crystal magic. You found crystal magic. They've probably unearthed some of the Bimanas from the past. That's probably what happened in the Middle East and all those wars. They probably unearthed documents, texts, glyphs, parchments, and probably artifacts. And they're gaining some knowledge that we shouldn't have. So Admiral Byrd says, "I nodded and the master continued. In 1945 and afterward, we tried to contact your race, but our efforts were met with hostility. Our fuel rods were fired upon. Yes, even pursued with malice and animosity by your fighter planes. So now I say to you, my son, there's a great storm gathering in your world, a black fury that will not spend itself for many years. There will be no answer in your arms. There will be no safety in your science. It may rage on until every flower of your culture is trampled and all human things are leveled in vast chaos. Your recent war was only a prelude of what is yet to come for your race. Again with the race thing. We here see it more clearly with each hour. Do you say I am mistaken? Is he mistaken? Tell me. No, I answer, it happened once before the Dark Ages came and they lasted for more than 500 years. Yes, my son, replied the master, the Dark Ages that will come now for your race will cover the earth like a pall. But I believe that some of your race will live through the storm. Beyond that, I cannot say. That sounds quite prophetic. And those Dark Ages were probably after the fall of Atlantis or after the flood. They might be referring to some other ones, but those are the ones I see right now. If you have other ideas, please let me know in the comments. And we seem to be at the beginning of those Dark Ages, like right freaking now. Just look at the media, mainstream, fake media, alternative media is also controlled, most of it anyway. We see at a great distance a new world stirring from the ruins of your race, seeking its lost and legendary treasures. And they will be here, my son, safe in our keeping. When that time arrives, we shall come forward again to help you revive your culture and your race. Perhaps by then you will have learned the futility of war and its strife, and after that time certain of your culture and science will be returned for your race to begin anew. You, my son, are to return to the surface world with this message. That's the message he wanted to give him. That we are seeking our lost and legendary treasures of Atlantis. But he's telling us that a new world will stir from the ruins of our race. And that these Lemurians, they call themselves the Iranian. We call them the Lemurians. They will be there safe in their keeping. Now, when I read that, I got chills because that's exactly what the Bhagavad Gita says. And let me read that to you. So, pay close attention. He's saying that the lost and legendary treasures that we're looking for are in the safekeeping of the Lemurians. Now, listen to this from the Bhagavad Gita. So, there are several translations of the Bhagavad Gita, just like we have with the Bible, but there is one single Sanskrit, which is awesome, and that is by the power of God. So I really invite you to do your own literal and multi-dimensional translations of the original Sanskrit text. With today's tools, this becomes a lot easier, than 10, 20 years ago. It would have been impossible. But so there's this particular passage right here where it's translated different ways. And for example, this I'm going to read, sorry for returning to Sanskrit. I'm going to read the original in Sanskrit, and then I'll give you the translations, and I'll give you mine. And why it's relevant to the whole bird mystery. So it goes something like, Namam duskirtono muda prapadyante nara dama maya yaparta yana asuram baba asrita. All right. So in this version, it reads, those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are the lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. I mean, it's not completely off, but it misses the mark. So if you don't know like the whole background story, you can miss the mark. Here's another translation, which is done by a very melodious voice. She sings Sanskrit in a way which, in my opinion, is just beautiful. It's angelic, and that's how it's supposed to sound like. So be sure to check out that channel. I mean, I'm not involved with that channel at all. I just really love the way she speaks it, the way she sings it, the accent that she has. It's completely different than from what you hear in other places. And I would think that would make it closer to the original pronunciation.
So she's got this translation that says, deprived of knowledge by illusion, attached as they are to a demoniacal existence. But it doesn't give the full story. And I'm going to give you a word by word translation here so you see I'm not making things up, I'm not straying. This is with the Devanagari script and with the Western alphabet. You can validate these on your own. So we have na, which means not, it's a negative, it's a negation, na. And you have that pretty much since you're a baby in any language, with the n meaning the negation. Mam is the possessive unto me of God. Because remember, this is Sri Krishna, or whom is an avatar of God, speaking in the first person. And he's telling Arjun how to lead his life, how to live his life. It's a lot of people complain, oh, well, there's no handbook for life. Well, yeah, there is. We have the Bible and we have the Bhagavad Gita, and both are two aspects of the same handbook of how you should live your life. So then the next word is doskertino, which is evildoer, and from there we get the word dusk, you know, which is when light becomes dark, and we have that root there for evildoer. Muda is a fool. Muda is a confusion of a mind, somebody that's a fool, that's stupid. And actually, remember how in the back in the day people used to say somebody's deaf and dumb used to be a synonym of mute. So muda also means mute in Spanish, and so somebody that is deaf and dumb would be, deaf and mute. So they would refer to them as stupid or foolish. Now we know better, but that's how they would refer to them back in the day. So that's where the root word for mute comes from muda, somebody that cannot speak, somebody that cannot speak. Sanskrit is also muda, somebody that has lost their sacred relationship with the language of creation, with the language of Christ, with the language of God. And I have proof now that there is evidence of Christ speaking Sanskrit in the Bible. I'll do that on my next video, and that's just completely mind blowing. And just God's grace and mercy in showing us all these connections to lead us back to the truth are pretty just amazing. Anyway, the next word is prapadyante, which means to embrace, to accept. Then we have naradama, which is a lot of these are conjunctions. Are sorry, not conjunctions. These are two words aggregated. So Nara Adama means Adama is a man, just like in Hebrew, and then Nara Adama would be the lowest, the vilest of men, a demon worshipping man. Okay, just the scum of the earth, and we're actually these people are actually in the highest offices right now, and unelected people, and these are the people that are telling us what to do, and this is just the state of things right now in Kali Yuga. Then we have Maya Ya Partayana. Yana is the root word for gnosis and for knowledge. That's the where all those words come from. So Maya is the power of God, the magic of word. That's the root for magic. Aparta is just like apartheid. It's the root word for apart. It's the root word for Spanish apartar. So you see how all the words come from Sanskrit? Check out my playlist where I go into detail on the subject. So this word means by my magic knowledge. Whose magic knowledge? That of God is taken away. Something is taken away. Knowledge is taken away by the magic of God. That's what that word means. And then asuram is fallen angels. You're going to get a lot of people giving you fake definitions of asura, and that is just baloney. It's very definitive. If you look for the meaning of the word sura, sura means a divine being, an angel, a being of light, a being of love. And asura is the negation of that. Somebody that used to be that and is no longer that. So who would no longer be an angel but a fallen angel? So it's definitively the same thing. And this leads us back to my point that I've been making across all my videos, that there's no 2, 3, 5, 10 different religions or stories. There's one story. It's been told in different languages. It's been told in different ages, in different forms, but it's one single story. Okay, so do not be deceived by the deceivers that want to like put you in different ghettos, put you in different camps, and divide and conquer. No, Asura means fallen angel, just like in the Bible, and we have this in the Vedic yogic mythologies. Not mythologies, histories as well. And then Vava Mars Asrita. Bhava or Vav means devotion. That's exactly what the word means. And the rest of it means taking refuge. So what he's saying is that somebody's taking refuge in the fallen angels. So who would be stupid to do that? Stupid enough to do that, right? The vilest and lowest of men. That's who would be. This would read like, according to my ignorant translation, would be, by the magic of God, knowledge is taken away from evildoer, vilest demon men who foolishly devote themselves to the fallen angels and not unto me. And you see how that's exactly the same thing that the master, the Arya, is telling Admiral Byrd. So this is a very deep connection between what's written in the diary and what the Bhagavad Gita is telling us in secret in the original Sanskrit, which has been corrupted in the translations, in the English fake translations, mistranslations. So these deep connections are the keys to the truth, which are, how do I know something's real? How do I know it's fake? How do I know it's bogus? How do I know it's a hoax? How do I know find my way back to the truth? You have to triangulate your way through different independent points that are pointing towards the way to God.
So I'm going to step back here and decode what the Ariani means. This guy, this master, told Byrd that they call themselves the Ariani, right? So what does Ariani mean? It's actually a Sanskrit word. No surprise there. All words come from Sanskrit. It is the word of God. And Arya means noble. It means several things. It means true. Just like today we have in the Gurukulas and the ashrams, we have the Brahmacharya. And those are the priests that have made sacred vows, different kinds of vows, silence, chastity, selflessness, etc., and handed themselves over to God. So an Arya is somebody that is respectable, honorable, faithful, a master. So when he's saying he's the Ariani, they're the Ariani, he's the Arya in Ariani. Friends, honorable men, worthy, wise, suitable, respectable, lords, master of what? Master of yourself first and foremost. Master of your senses, so that then you can relate to God and be worthy of serving God. Arya also means excellent, dear, devoted, gentleman, favorable, kind, worthy, courteous, polite, sir, honesty, praise, very friendly, intimate. There's so many variations. And this is where the word Aryan comes from. But it's also, in today's world, it's perverted and it's corrupted. So they show us this Aryan brotherhood and these stupid things, which is completely the opposite. It's barbaric people of violence. And this is the complete opposite. You see, there was no Aryan invasion of India. We are the Aryan invasion. I mean, we're not the Aryan invasion. We're the country. We're the barbarians. We're the crazy people worshipping demons, worshipping ourselves when we should be serving God. You see the point? So the Aryans, the real Ariani, are the ones that survived. These are the Lemurians. They're exactly the same. They're not going to call themselves Lemurians. By the way, Lemuria, be sure to check out my video on where the names of the continents come from, because I tell you where the name comes from there. Lemuria means the wall of God in Sanskrit. And Arya is also means Ari of God. So that whom is devoted to God, because Yah is the name of the Godhead, God the Father, Arya. Beloved, respectable persons, a mansion, right words, right thoughts, right meditation, right living, right actions, right exertions. So what's the opposite of an Ari or Aryani or Brahmacharya? It's a Sanskrit word that's called mlecha. I don't know how to pronounce it properly, but it's like mlecha. Mlecha means a foreigner, an outcast race, ignorant of Sanskrit, a non-Aryan, a barbarian, a person who does not speak Sanskrit, somebody that speaks indistinctly, to cause to speak indistinctly. That's what we do. And all these fake spurious languages that have been perverted by the fallen angels of Atlantis, they beat us. They beat the Sanskrit out of us through our love of worldly possessions and our love of ego. And we were subjected by them to horrible things. But first and foremost, we subject ourselves. So it is you, the person looking at yourself in the mirror, right, every single minute of every day, that can change your world. You have to take responsibility and then surrender it to God. That's how it works. So we are the mlechas. We're the ones. So when in Admiral Byrd's diary, the guy says, "You are barbarians, or you have done barbarian things." That's exactly what he's saying. If these guys speak Sanskrit, which it looks like they do, from the markings on their craft and from the words that he's using, master is Arya, just like that Hotel Arya in Vegas. So if he's the master of the domain, then he's an Arya. And we're the mlechas, we're the barbarians. You see how these words correlate exactly? And that's not by coincidence. He's choosing his words very carefully. He's mentioning long silences here. And so that's very, very telling right there. So continuing, when this master in the world of the Arya says, perhaps by then you will have learned the futility of war and its strife, and stop being barbarians, and after that time certain of your culture and science will be returned for your race. But he's saying perhaps. So it's not up to him, even if he's the leader of this civilization. It's always up to God, and see the difference in the humility in that statement. You, my son, are to return to the surface world with this message. That was the message to Byrd. And that's the message that he sent out on his deathbed in this diary. And that's the message that I'm decoding forensically for you now, so that you may receive this message and for whatever purpose it's meant. Okay? So use it wisely. Then it reads, with these closing words, our meeting seemed at an end. I stood for a moment as in a dream, but yet I knew this was reality, and for some strange reason I bowed slightly, either out of respect or humility. I do not know which. Again, it seems very truthful. And if you ever met somebody like that, which I have, like, big personalities like that, you end up bowing, and you don't even know why, but I think it's just a natural reaction of the body to somebody that's coming off as very honest, very wise, and very respectful of you. You always bow, like it happens naturally. Suddenly, I was again aware that the two beautiful hosts who had brought me here were again at my side. This way, Admiral, motion 1. I turned once more before leaving and looked back toward the master. A gentle smile was etched on his delicate and ancient face. Farewell, my son, he spoke, and he gestured with a lovely, slender hand. A motion of peace, and our meeting was truly ended. Wow, look at this. This picture is from Athanasius Kircheri, one of the top Jesuits. Wow, I didn't realize that was here. This is not the inner Earth. This is the electromagnetic domain, as if you were looking up and down, and you see it's the giant tree, electromagnetic tree in the middle, and all the electromagnetic domains. That's mind blowing. I'll do a whole video on the guy there. That was a big guy there that ran the Jesuit Library of the Vatican, which is also the Library of Babylon. Anyway, let's keep on quickly. We walk back through the great. Wow, this is a huge message right here. This is for people that have eyes to see and ears to listen. This is the thumbprint, the signature of the Jesuits. So this means that they've been through the book. They've redacted. This is proof. I didn't know this was here when I was starting to do this video because I hadn't looked at it for months. This is a smoking gun that the Jesuits signed this book. This is a signature of them, and that they know this book is true, but they're putting their own take on it, just like they do with Christ. Wow, I'll do a video on that. Many videos. That's pretty impressive. So keep this in mind. Quickly, we walked back through the great door of the master's chamber and once again entered into the elevator. The door slid silently downward and we were at once going upward. One of my hosts spoke again. We must now make haste, Admiral, as the master decides to delay you no longer on your scheduled timetable, and you must return with his message to your race. I said nothing. All of this was almost beyond belief, and once again my thoughts were interrupted. As we stopped, I entered the room and was again with my radio man. He had an anxious expression on his face. So if these guys are different races, not sons of Adam, they don't have the original sin that we do from Adam and Eve. That just came to mind. Just something to ponder. I mean, there's nowhere in the Bible that tells us this couldn't happen. On the contrary. As I approached, I said, "It is all right, Howie. It is all right." Howie is probably the name of his radio man that was waiting. The two beings motioned us toward the waiting. He sometimes refers to them as beings, sometimes as humans. So that's rather strange. So he may know, or he might have figured out later that they're not sons of Adam. They're still human-like. They're very much human. They're very much sons of God, but they're not exactly from the same creation timetable as us. They're from a previous. Okay? Anyway, the two beings motioned us toward the awaiting conveyance. We boarded and soon arrived back at the aircraft. The engines were idling and we boarded immediately. The whole atmosphere seemed charged now with a certain air of urgency. After the cargo door was closed, the aircraft was immediately lifted by that unseen force until we reached an altitude of 2,700 feet. Two of the aircraft were alongside for some distance, guiding us on our return way. I must state here, the airspeed indicator registered no reading, yet we were moving along at a very rapid rate. This is all crystal magic. And then it says 2:15 hours. Is that 02:15? Probably. Radio message comes through. We are leaving you now, Admiral. Your controls are free. Auf Wiedersehen. He's saying Auf Wiedersehen in German, probably because they had contact with the Germans, not necessarily because they're German, through New Schwabenland project. We watched for a moment as the Flugelrats disappeared into the pale blue sky. The aircraft suddenly felt as though caught in a sharp downdraft for a moment. We quickly recovered her control. We do not speak for some time. Each man has his thoughts. 2:20 hours, we are again over vast areas of ice and snow and approximately 27 minutes from base camp. We radio them, they respond. We report all conditions normal. Base camp expresses relief at our re-established contact. 3:00 hours, we land smoothly at base camp. I have a mission. So there's a lot missing here because he couldn't have made a 4 or 5 hour trip in an hour. So either they were catapulted, which he's not mentioning that, or like teleported, or the times here are messed with. And then on March 11th, 1947, he attends a briefing at the Pentagon. So let's see how much time that is after. He's saying February 19th February 19th February he made the trek, and he is almost a month later at a staff meeting in the Pentagon. So I don't think he was sitting at his office or his home for a month. Probably the trip back took a while. I have just attended a staff meeting at the Pentagon. I have stated fully my discovery and the message from the master. They would immediately take you to Washington, the Pentagon, the pentagram. All is duly recorded. The president has been advised. I am now detained for several hours, 6 hours, 39 minutes to be exact. I am interviewed intently by top security forces and a medical team. It was an ordeal. This guy has the top security clearance of anybody, and he's being interviewed by the president, debriefed, interrogated for over 6 hours, and he has the exact number of minutes. This is a very precise guy. That's what I'm telling you. Throughout the text, you can see that. I am placed under strict control via the national security provisions of this United States of America. I am ordered to remain silent in regard to all that I have learned on the behalf of humanity. Incredible. Unfreaking believable. Because here's the guy that did everything for Uncle Sam, for the powers that be. And look at how they're treating him, and look at how the Aryans, the real Aryans, treated him. Even if he wasn't from that. You see the difference of how demons act and how barbarians act as opposed to noble people. You've seen it all your life. But which one are you? Which one do you want to be? That's the main question here. That's what life's about. Choosing the right path. Choosing God. I am reminded that I am a military man and I must obey orders. That's a cryptic statement right there. That means so many things. You keep your mouth shut and you toe the line, or we kill you and your family and everybody you care about, buddy. So they don't need to be that crude. They just tell him he's a military man and must obey orders. December 30, 1956, final entry. This is, 9 years? 9.5 years after. The last few years elapsed since 1947 have not been kind. This is when he's writing this stuff. I now make my final entry in this singular diary. It's diary. So this is the final entry. In closing, I must state that I have faithfully kept this matter secret as directed all these years. It has been completely against my values of moral right. Now, I seem to sense that the long night coming on, and this secret will not die with me, but as all truth shall, it will triumph, and so it shall. This can be the only hope for mankind. I have seen the truth, and it has quickened my spirit and has set me free. I have done my duty toward the monstrous military-industrial complex. Now the long night begins to approach, but there shall be no end. Just as the long night of the Arctic ends, the brilliant sunshine of truth shall come again, and those who are of darkness shall fall in its light. For I have seen that land beyond the pole, that center of the great unknown. Admiral Richard D. Byrd, United States Navy, 24 December, Christmas, 1956. He's seen the land beyond the pole. North and bottom, Central Pole and South America. And he's seen that center of the great unknown. He's talking about the tree of life there. He's not talking about the Lemurians there. And he is very positive. He knows he's about to die. He's on his deathbed. But he seems very positive. And you can... And that rings very truthful, guys, because I see that in a lot of people. Like you see that in the followers of Christ, the apostles. They were beaten. They were humiliated. They were sacrificed. Most of them ended up dying horrible deaths. but they kept true, because once you've seen the light, the true light, the truth, there's no going back. There's also this guy called Alan Greer, that you see him talking about UFOs and magic and advanced tech and all that, and he seems like a quack and a hack, but when you see him, he talks exactly like this, and he mentions a lot of things which I've realized are true from my research. Like, he knows about, that gravity doesn't exist, density, buoyancy, all that, electrogravitics. He knows all that. He knows about crystal magic, and he doesn't accept. He knows about Christ being real, and you can see it on his several interviews. He kind of tells you between the lines, and he's had that same attitude. Like, you guys can kill me for all I care, but I'm not gonna go back on my word, because I've seen what's on the other side of the curtain. Anyway, guys, that's what I have for you today. God bless.